Hello, I'm Death's Arrow, and welcome to episode 5 of What I'm Thinking. In this episode, I'll be focusing on the E-75 heavy tank. The E-75 is generally considered the best Tier 9 heavy tank in the game. I would tend to agree with that assessment, as the E-75 can definitely hold its own against its Tier 9 counterparts. From a historical perspective, the Entwicklung series, more commonly known as the E-series, was Germany's attempt late in World War II to produce a standardized series of tank designs. This was due to the highly complex tank designs that had resulted in poor mechanical reliability and low production rates. The E-series designs were simpler, cheaper to produce, and more efficient than their predecessors. The E-75 Standard Panzer was intended to be the heavy tank replacement of the Tiger II. The E-75 would have much improved armor all around in comparison. The E-75 and E-50 were intended to have many components in common, from the same turret and 88mm L71 or L100 gun to the same Maybach HL234 engine. The 75 in E-75 stands for the tank's weight, which would have been 75 tons. Outside of the prototype hull for the E-100, no other E-series tank was developed any further than blueprints. In World of Tanks, the E-75 is essentially an overgrown Tiger II with better armor, guns, and mobility. It has similar armor and guns in comparison with the often maligned OS-B, but with a center-mounted turret and better mobility, which leads to a much more traditional heavy tank experience. When the E-75 was introduced into the game last year, it quickly became regarded as the best Tier 9 heavy tank. I would tend to agree with this assessment. At that time, the only real competitor to the E-75 was the IS-4, which the E-75 compares very favorably to. With the introduction of the AMX-5120 and the M103, as well as the IS-8 and STI, the competition for the best Tier 9 heavy tank has increased considerably. Like most German tanks, the lower plate of the E-75 is vulnerable. To enhance the armor, I suggest angling the front of your E-75 about 10 to 15 degrees to try to get shells to bounce. Much like most German vehicles in game, the side and rear armor are much thinner, and you generally do not want to present that armor to the enemy if you can avoid it. Also of note, the commander's hatch is also vulnerable, and at close ranges is an easy target to attack. For equipment on this tank, I recommend a rammer to speed up reloading, an enhanced gun-laying drive to speed up aiming, and a spall liner to help with the high amount of arty rounds that will be flying your way. The same equipment loadout works for the E-100 as well, if you decide to sell your E-75 to help finance your E-100. For skills, I recommend Repair First for the E-75. The tank takes a lot of module damage, like most German tanks, and the E-75 is particularly vulnerable to getting tracked. Being tracked in the open is certain death. After that, I recommend taking mobility-enhancing skills for the driver, like clutch braking and Off-Road King. Other recommended skills would be Mentor, Preventative Maintenance, and Safe Stowage. The first replay that we'll be looking at is a solo battle on Swamps from April 19th, 2012. I did an intro for Swamps in episode 4. Please refer to that episode if you have interest in learning more about this map. Reviewing tank composition for this battle shows the following. I am top tier along with an IS-4 versus an IS-4 and a Jagdtiger. Technically an advantage to our side, although a good Jagdtiger driver on this map can easily even those odds. We have better tier 8s, although they have the mobility advantage. The enemy team has more tier 7s and a T-50-2. Each team has one arty, and both units hit pretty hard. I don't recognize anyone in this battle. I'm starting from the western spawn. My decision as the battle starts is to play it cautiously and head south to a defensive position at the rock outcrop at H4.
Let's go!
This looks to be a good decision, as the majority of the team heads north. An EZ-8 and a T-20 are the first tanks spotted in the south. They're behind the burnout buildings, so I can't hit them from this position. Please note the angling of my tank in relation to the enemy. You should always do this and be conscious of the position of your hull to the enemy. A KV-3, a Tier 6 by the way, as this is a pre-7.3 patch battle, is spotted crossing the bridge. I make a decision that I can handle these enemies and push up the town. As I reach town, a VK-3601H and a Tiger are spotted beyond the bridge. So far, there are at least 5 enemies on this flank, all Tier 7 and below. My side armor is exposed here. Probably not the best choice, as these enemies will be hard-pressed to punch through my front armor.
One of our tracks is hit.
Once I reach a good position, I get a shot off on the Tiger, and then back behind the building to avoid return fire. The 12.8cm gun has a 13-second reload time, and all these enemies have much quicker reload times. Our S-51 is focusing on this flank and makes his presence known as the enemy is all bunched up ahead of me.
Tracks up. Let's go. Got him.
As I make another push forward, it's clear that none of the enemy's top-tier tanks are on this flank. Everything on this flank is the lower half of their team. I likely should have went north, but that's a double-edged sword, as the south would have been overrun. Artie pops 2 tanks right in front of me at the same time, as the enemy is still very bunched up.
Nailed it bad.
This T-20 is playing it smart here by keeping this building between us. He's one-shottable by my gun. I've just made a mistake here by trying to chase down the T-20 and exposing my side armor to that Tiger across the water as he damages my ammo rack. There's still a ways to go in this battle, so I use my repair kit on the ammo rack. A 26-second reload time wouldn't be fun to deal with. Artie gets a 3rd kill, knocking out the T-20. Really nice support here. As the VK-3601 gets knocked out, I make a push for the south bridge. The northern flank appears to be at a stalemate, so this is the right play to put pressure on the enemy. Before I can get to the bridge, a Tiger tracks me.
Let's go.
I move up to the building in front of me and trade shots with him.
Enemy is hit. We've lost a track. We're immobilized. Tracks up. Let's go.
Enemy Artie makes his presence known, knocking off both my tracks and taking a big chunk off my health.
We fixed the track. Let's go.
Once my tracks are repaired, I push over the bridge to try to find some cover from Artie. The Tiger II that's been harassing me drives out of his spot, and I pop him without slowing down. I then spot a low off in the distance at D7. I get hit by Artie again, right before I hit the low. My health is down to 11%. This is not good, as the enemy is starting to overwhelm the northern flank, and I haven't even fought any of the enemy's Tier 9 tanks.
Track repaired. Drive on.
A T-50-2 makes an odd play and charges at me. I hit him, and then our Tiger II finishes him off.
That one bounced.
The enemy Artie that's been beating on me has been spotted at E0. Time for a little payback.
They're knocked out. We've just dinged him.
With the Tiger II for support, we continue to move up.
Enemy armor is destroyed.
I destroy the low the first time he exposes himself. With low health, I'm using this outcrop for hard cover as I reload, only exposing myself to take my shots. This will minimize return fire. Our T-50/2 has exposed himself trying to make a run for the enemy cap. I use this distraction to knock out the enemy KV-5.
Find another target.
I've overexposed my side armor against the enemy Pershing, but luckily his return shot only does track damage.
Enemy armor
The Pershing tries to rush me, and I pop him as he comes out of cover. A check on the minimap shows the northern flank has been breached, with only a low left to hold the enemy back. Our Tiger II makes a run for the enemy base. This is a smart play, as we know where all the enemies are located. The enemy Type 59 has exposed himself trying to get a shot at our Tiger II, and I make him pay for it. Our Tiger II begins capping as the northern flank falls. The enemy's Type 59 gets careless again, and I finish him off. I'm holding this corner in a defensive posture to ensure that the enemy can't get back to stop cap. Although, I do have a concern here. If the enemy can get multiple tanks to our cap, they'll be able to beat out our Tiger II's capping. As I try to move forward towards the enemy cap, I get knocked out by the enemy's Jagdtiger. I wasn't really surprised by that. I was a bit rash pushing to cap from that location. The enemy finally gets a tank on our cap, but it's too late as our Tiger II completes the cap for the win. Looking at the victory screen, I made 7 kills and earned 2,443 experience before the double, which is an awesome game and actually set a new high in experience for a single game for me. I earned a Bolter's Medal as well as a top gun. 18 at 25 shooting is decent. The 12.8cm gun can be a bit inaccurate at times. Overall, I made the right decision early on by covering the southern flank. Normally, as top tank, I should be engaging the other team's top tanks, but you also can't afford to leave other parts of the map undefended. I pushed very hard into the lower tiered enemies that went south and didn't take much damage outside of Arty. Once the south was clear, putting pressure on the enemy by pushing north was critical to slowing down their advance across the northern bridge. I had to play a bit cautiously at this point in the match due to low health. By being careful, I was able to continue to inflict damage on the enemy, which became the key to victory. My big mistake was pushing to the enemy cap while our Tiger II was capping. Watching the replay doesn't really convey my concerns, as it's pretty clear in the replay that the enemy's IS-4 wasn't going to make it to their cap in time. I also didn't know where their Panzer IV was, although from the replay he was in the northern town and likely wouldn't have made it to cap. The second replay that we'll be looking at is a platoon battle on mines from April 5th, 2012. I am platoon with Jovial Madness in his E-75. Mines is one of the older game maps, formerly named Pagorki. This map features a central flat hilltop with a village to the northeast and an island water route to the west. The bases are located at opposite corners of the map. Base 1 is slightly elevated from the surrounding terrain. The map is reasonably balanced and neither side has a particular advantage over the other. Typically, the hill is the focus of this map, and the team that takes the hill generally has the advantage, as it offers excellent positions to snipe and spot. Usually, there's a medium rush for the hill, although heavies will also climb up to offer support. Heavy tanks will generally gravitate towards the village, and there's usually a pretty good battle for this area. The island side will see a mixed push of tanks, as there are locations that offer positions that can snipe the hill. Reviewing tank composition for this battle shows the following. This is a Tier 10 battle, with 1 Tier 10 per side. Our team has better as well as more Tier 9s. The enemy has a significant medium advantage. Our team has more Arty. We spawned at the south base, and it's very clear that we aren't taking the hill with the enemy's significant medium advantage, and we decide to go to the village.
Let's get this show on the road.
The enemy quickly takes the hill, which is no surprise. As we reach the corner at E7, Jovial spots a 5100. Not a huge threat, and we quickly knock him out. A 30 and an M103 have also been spotted during the exchange. I've stayed back at the corner, which exposes me to the Lorraine and Type 59 on the hill, as the 59 damages my ammo rack from behind. This is the advantage of the hill. They're able to get flank shots in while I was distracted. Unfortunately for the Lorraine, Artie is paying attention and knocked him out. I quickly put down the 59 with my next shot. With the hill threat cleared, I moved to rejoin Jovial so that we could take on the 30 and M103. Surprisingly, that enemy Patton didn't go hill. It's likely that any threat from the hill is over. With a numbers advantage, we push hard on the enemy.
Nice shot. That's gotta hurt.
Quickly knocking out the 30 and M103. We are exposed to Artie though, and the Su-14 gets a direct hit on me.
Finder knocked down.
The enemy is quickly getting wiped out as our entire team continues to push on them.
Enemy vehicle destroyed. Penetration. Enemy armor is
I get the final kill here on the T110E5 to finish off the match. Looking at the victory screen, I made 3 kills and earned 1,566 experience, a good match. The match was very quick at 4 minutes and 30 seconds and was an overwhelming victory. Overall, we knew right off the bat that the enemy would be able to take the hill due to their medium advantage, so there was little point in contesting the hill. Due to the amount of Artie, it made the most sense to go to the village, which has the best Artie cover from the southern base. We pushed hard the whole way, only pausing briefly to deal with the enemies on the hill. Good Artie support made short work of the enemy's brief hill advantage. While we did expose ourselves to Artie as the battle progressed, the battle was already won at this point, and there was no reason to hold back. A consistent push is what won this battle, and is why it was such a landslide. Thank you for watching this episode of What I'm Thinking. Stay tuned for another episode soon. As requested, I will take a look at an American tank in the next episode.
Ha ha ha.